Hello and welcome to Paradigm Playbook, a podcast for entrepreneurs in the business of sports. Your hosts, Dave Kozak and Steve Cook, are business owners, successful entrepreneurs, sports enthusiasts, avid readers, and longtime friends. For years, they've read every business book on the market and built successful companies with what they've learned. This podcast will give you the critical takeaways in just 15 minutes a week. It's a quick and easy playbook for building a winning sports business. And now, here are your hosts, Dave and Steve.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Paradigm Playbook. I'm your host, Dave Kozak, alongside my co-host, Mr. Steve Cook. Today we're going to discuss a little bit about what we think makes a quality leader, right? And kind of the habits and the practices that quality leaders participate in.
Yeah, I think when you study leadership, you get commonalities amongst the leaders that they all have certain habits, and you can go into the basics of the leaders are the ones that are the first to speak up. They're the first ones to step up. So all those things are good leadership traits. But I think, and if you back it down to real basics, I think you can define those habits.
Yeah, and I think it's not just a practice. It's not just a activity. It's a kind of unwavering commitment to what it is they're doing that leads to that building the culture of people following and getting to things, getting things done effectively, right? I remember the quote, which is successful people do what unsuccessful people are unwilling to do.
Mm-hmm.
And leaders are often put in tough spots, right? And how do you navigate through that, right? What characteristics give rise to those that can persevere?
If you as you dig into the habits, I think you can talk about, the big habits that are, defining habits, the things that Simon Sinek talks about, in Leaders Eat Last and these grand things. But you can also drill it down to very small little habits. So leaders tend to greet people when they walk in front of them. They talk to people.
Yep.
So they don't ignore people. So little things like always saying hello, always greeting people, always having a positive attitude, always moving towards the solution. We talk about RSF. That becomes a habit.
Yep. I think you're also in a scenario where, and I talk a lot about this in the section of the book on success, is that the leader, they're going to typically run pretty hard, right? They're gonna be very tactful about what they do. And I think one of the traits that I've noticed that most great leaders do is say no.
Yeah, I think it's almost too easy to accept everything that comes your way. And I think it was Warren Buffett was the first one. It says, my success is defined by all the deals I didn't take.
Yep.
So if he's taken, 1 out of 100 deals that are presented to him, he's pretty successful. There's a lot of saying no in that.
Yeah. And it's not saying no for the sake of saying no, right? It's the idea that as a leader, you have to present the direction and rally the troops and get people moving in a specific direction. And if you've got too many directions to push people in, you as a leader, you get yourself too thin, right? And then you get your team too scattered. And, you talk about like the building of the pyramids and things like that. Imagine if you had not everybody pulling in the same direction at the same time, you don't get those stones where they need to go. And it's no different in what you're trying to create for your company or for, the culture. If you focus on too many things, there's an old Asian proverb that the eagle that chases two rabbits starves.
Yeah.
Right? There's something of that nature. But if you don't have your eyes on the prize of what you're trying to do, and this goes to saying no, because you may be presented 15 decisions, and you say no to 14 of them, but that last one is the one you focus on. Or you may have said yes to a decision the day before, and a better option presents itself the next day. How do you pivot on that, right?
I think great leaders have an analytical mind that gives them the habit of always looking at both sides of everything. So there's nothing that's all black or all white in a good leader's mind. Everything falls in that spectrum of gray where they're analyzing. And whether it's, like a leader on the baseball field, they say this guy's using too many metrics and this one's just, buying, running based on his gut feeling. I think the true leader is using all of that data and putting it together. And that's why you'll see one of the habits I see with all leaders, and this is from the corporate level to small business, is they're always out and about. They're not, holed up in their office trying to make decisions in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think there's another component of good leadership, which is delegation. There's another component of good leadership, which is you don't have all of the answers and all of the ideas, so you lean on those around you. I think a lot of it comes down to ego, right? And I say that not lightly. If you carry a large ego as a leader, it'll be your Achilles heel, right? When you have employees that have the knowledge and the capability of giving good advice or of bouncing ideas off of, if you don't use those people, number one, you're not bringing them along, and you're putting yourself in an isolated environment to make all the decisions, right? Warren Buffett may say no to a lot of things, but it's not because he doesn't bounce them off a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right?
So what's your thought on the best way to develop a habit? So let's say you recognize, and I'd like to be more like so-and-so. How do you develop a habit?
There's you can go back to all the coaching manuals out there that you got to do something 21 days in a row before it becomes a habit and all that. But I think as you age and mature in business and in your personal life, it is recognizing that it's something you want to work on and making the choice to do so, right? And I look at RSF was a Relentless Solution Focus by Dr. Jason Selk, a phenomenal concept and book, and I put it in practice immediately upon reading it. Now, I had always been a solution-focused individual. I never put a time limit to it. I never said, okay, this just happened. I got 60 seconds to figure out what's one thing I can do to, move forward from there in a positive light. I always did that. Sometimes it would be a day, sometimes it'd be a week, sometimes it'd be a minute or an hour or whatever. But in recognizing it, I chose to put it into practice. So now when I find myself in that negative headspace, it's like, all right, I got 60 seconds.
So so James Clear wrote the book Atomic Habits, which is another great book on habits. And, and I was recently rereading parts of that as I was writing a habit. I'm working on this book on for parents coaching baseball. And one of the things is trying to help children develop habits. By the way, he says the number one habit is the habit of showing up, which is, it's a good lesson for kids to learn is to, first thing you got to do is show up. But he puts the habit formation in a spectrum of noticing, wanting, doing, and liking. So if you put it in the realm of fitness, so you notice people that are in good shape, and then you kind of like that look and you'd like to do that. So you start doing it. And then it's the 21 or the 30 or 60 days or whatever that is before you start liking it. And then then when it's really a habit, it's something that you won't give up. It's like, does a runner like running a mile the first time they run it? No, but after they notice it, they want to do it, they do it. And at some point, that runner, you can't stop them. And that's what happens in good business. you can't stop Warren Buffett from doing that analysis of any company,
Mm-hmm.
whether he's thinking about buying it or not. He just won't not do that. And I think that's where you are with RSF. It's like, you don't have the time or the mentality or the bandwidth to linger on a problem. I got to talk about the solution.
Yep. And I think you make a great point in the recognize and then try, and then you like it and you continue it. Not all habits are fun, right? Not all habits that you have to get in to be successful, to be a leader, are fun habits, right? I'll tell a quick story. I'm in a networking group that I've been in for 12 years. I wouldn't say I'm the most successful out of the group, but I've exhausted the benefit to me personally in the group from a pure business standpoint. And I was approached last week and asked why I'm still in the group by another member. And I said, well, I started my weekly schedule based on a 7 a.m. Tuesday morning meeting. And I've built my companies and my career based on a 7 a.m. Tuesday morning meeting. So after 7 a.m. to 8:30, I scheduled a 9 o'clock. Then I scheduled an 11 o'clock. Then I decided I was going to work all the way through Monday, 9 to 9. So Monday through Tuesday was going to be a killer. Then at 2 o'clock Tuesdays, I'm out. Well, then Wednesday I go back at it and I'm in again. But so the point that I make about the habit is people don't understand why I'm in this group. Well, number one, it's a time for me to talk about what I do. So that's important to me, to refine and redefine and rebuild my elevator pitch and how I motivate my employees. But at the same time, it's an opportunity for me to learn from other business owners, albeit maybe smaller, maybe bigger. Doesn't matter to me. It's that opportunity, and that habit that was created is why I won't let it go, because it helped establish and get me where I am. So if I've proven successful, do you change something when it works?
Yeah. So I think, and as I'm writing about habits for children, I zeroed in on what I call keystone habits, and they're the habits, like your networking group. It's a keystone habit that builds the rest of your day around. And like for me, one of my keystone habits is fitness. Well, it's something that I have trouble giving up now, and once it's really a habit, you will start making excuses for doing it. It's like, I have to leave this meeting because I have to get a workout in. Or another habit that I had that I started that's a keystone habit for me was time I get up in the morning. I had heard all this about, great people get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I said, okay, well, I got to get up at 5. I'm not as smart as the rest of the world. I need a head start.
Yeah.
And then people, my partner finally said, you know what, you're getting up at 5. I'm going to do that too.
Yep.
So I said, that's great. So I had an influence. Of course, I changed and started getting up at 4:30 because I still need the head start. But those things that you build around it controls the rest of your day.
Yeah. The cool part about, and I want to get back to one thing that I think all true leaders do that maybe goes unrecognized, because there's a point when success becomes prevalent. But true leaders, they'll outwork you. They will. If there's a deadline or there is something that needs to get done, they're going to be there getting it done. Right? They don't stop and give up and quit. And so you parlay it back to sports, and you talk about, the on-field leader versus the locker room leader versus, the guy that leads by example versus the guy that leads by words. In all cases of true leaders and successful leaders, they'll be there to work, right? Every single time.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard John Maxwell's rule of 5. John Maxwell is a great motivational speaker. He's written 60 plus books, but he's done a lot. His rule of 5, basically, and he uses the analogy to a man wanting to chop down a tree. Go out there and take your axe and take 5 swings at that tree, and then walk away. Go back the next day. Well, if you do it 1 day, 2 days, you do it a week, it has no effect. But if you never stop that habit of 5, that tree's eventually going to come down.
Yep.
Now you can leverage those habits by making the axe sharper. It's a bigger tree, smaller tree.
Yep.
What time of day, what time of year, how old's the tree, all those things. And it's the same thing with habits. It's getting up early in the morning is a habit for me. But if I don't do anything with it, I'm not leveraging that habit. So I think great leaders not only have those great habits, but then they leverage them with other habits. We've often talked, Dave, about this habit of lifetime learning. And you and I both have gotten so sucked into that it's one of those things that we can't give up. Everybody's listening. Every time Dave and I get, almost every time we get together, it's, hey, did you read this? Or did you hear this podcast? So this lifetime learning becomes a habit. And I think if you look at all of those leaders from, Jeff Bezos to Warren Buffett to, Bill Gates, whoever you want, they're always looking. They have this quest for learning.
Yeah.
That is a keystone habit amongst leaders.
And if you want to become a leader, I can tell you right now that, and this didn't happen for me overnight. I didn't start this way in business, but perfect example is last night, my son was invited to go play on a basketball team. Historically, I've coached everything my kids have done. And this time it wasn't me. He was invited because of his athletic talent and they wanted him to come out and play. I didn't start the team. I didn't take over the team. I had nothing to do with it. He just got invited. And I walked into the gym and I know the other coach who invited him. And historically, I'm kind of sucked into, hey, we step on the court. And I was in my civilian clothes. I had a button down and a sweater on, and I was in nice pants and shoes. And so I wasn't prepared to coach. I didn't look like I was trying to coach. My son goes out on the floor and I just felt like, oh, fantastic. I get a solid hour, put my earbuds in, and I went to listen to a book that I've already read 3 times. This is the 4th time and it was excitement to learn more and to extract more. And a moment where I get excited now if I get an hour where I can either open the pages of a book and get into it, or I can listen to something. And so, I was leaf blowing on Saturday in my front yard, had my earbuds in. That was the 3rd time I listened to the book that I listened to last night.
Yeah. So if we, put that as a keystone habit of all those leaders, then I think, if you want to apply that in athletics, you'll see. And then the great coaches will tell you that all those superstar athletes, the Michael Jordans and the Tom Bradys, they have this insatiable quest for improvement. And, I don't think that, Jeff Bezos or, Zuckerberg or Buffett is ever fully satisfied. So if dissatisfaction is a habit, I think they all possess that.
Yeah, well, I think it's realizing that perfection is unattainable. But man, I'm going to work to get as close as I possibly can. And there's something else that I think resonates with leaders is that progress in its own right is motivating. And so any type of progress forward in any particular pathway, it motivates that person to do more, to bring more, to keep going. And so there's this relationship that the more progress that's made, the more progress you can make. And so it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I need progress in this. I need to move this needle forward. And once that needle's moved forward, it's just a reinvigoration of what you were doing, and you continue to push it and push it and push it. And the perfect example in my life right now is we wanted to really get into marketing and really figure out, like, basically go to school and figure out what marketing is about. Or I did anyway. I wanted to understand everything about it. So 6 months ago, I just started. I started with book number 1. I started with podcast number 1, video number 1. I interviewed a great marketer. I've interviewed a copywriter. I've talked to all these different people that are in this space to try and extract what I need to extract, because our marketing's been effective for a long time, but I want more. I want better. I'm not satisfied with it any longer. And I think that's a huge point that you make, is the rarely satisfied.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that growth, both individually and company-wide is a habit. And, we could go off track a little bit and, hit on, Simon Sinek with his finite and infinite games. Well, growth is an infinite game. It's not like I'm going to learn it all and then I'll be done. Probably next Tuesday I'll be done. It's kind of like friendship. You don't say, let's shake hands and be friends for the next 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's you're building. And that's the approach that we're taking to entrepreneurism and small business is try to set the mindset of continual growth. So we just continue to get better and better. And doesn't mean you can't exit, but if you're doing that, leaving the legacy. So if Warren Buffett, exits Berkshire Hathaway, hopefully it keeps going. Hopefully Microsoft goes beyond, it already has gone beyond Bill Gates.
And Apple's gone beyond Steve Jobs.
Yeah, so that's creation, and that's what an entrepreneur with the proper habits can do.
Well, and I think it all goes back to one of the original books is Mindset by Carol Dweck, right? And it's the fixed versus the growth mindset, or the static versus the growth mindset. You're static, you believe you exist in whatever space you exist in, and growth wise, you can move to a new space at any time. You just got to put your head down and get after it, right? And get to that space. So I think, you can go back and look at, even one of my favorites by Dan Sullivan is Laws of Lifetime Growth. These 10 laws of lifetime growth were from Dan Sullivan and Catherine Nomura interviewing high-level executives, CEOs of multi-billion-dollar organizations, and coming up with what habits did they have. Well, their habits include, making your future bigger than your past, making your gratitude greater than your applause, and these ideas that they're constantly pushing forward in spite of all odds, in spite of when it looks bad, right? They're continuing to push. So again, I think the takeaways for me are the hard work is obvious, right? The motivation to continue to grow, lifetime learning, and the ability to delegate intelligently and lean on those who have knowledge base in an area that can benefit them in their decision-making process.
Yeah, and I think, bottom line is you can control your habits.
Yeah.
So they're self-directed. So, but if you don't self-direct them, they can go another way. So you can have good habits or bad habits. A good habit, you decide to do 10 push-ups a day. You go in and do 10 push-ups, it has zero effect. You do it the next day, it has zero effect. Do it for a week, it has zero effect. Do it for a lifetime, you'll be much fitter. Same is true about eating a bag of M&Ms. You eat them today, it has no effect. Do it every day for a year.
You're going to have a few pounds. Right. And go back to, what was that documentary? Super Size Me.
Yeah.
When a guy ate nothing but McDonald's and all of his charts were like,
yeah, doing anything once has no effect, positive or negative. Making a habit of it has a definite impact. So it's up to you whether you want those habits to improve your life or, deteriorate your life. And, when it comes to learning, Dave, there are so many books out there that dig into the habits, but, so I like Atomic Habits. James Clear's book is awesome. Another book that's fun is called Tools of Titans.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes through great, many successful people and what their habits are. They have many commonalities, but they also have kind of quirky, different habits. It's kind of fun to look at.
Yeah, no. And I think the cool part now is there are so many ways to get the information, right? You can read a book if you like reading. You can listen to a book. You can listen to a podcast. You can listen to presenters. You can go on YouTube and you can get it's not just now you have to be in academia and scouring through pages to become this, right? We've made it more accessible. So again, I think it's incredible. And I heard a fantastic presentation, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. It really hit home. And the point the gentleman's name is Mark LeBlanc. He's out of, I think, in Milwaukee or there's somewhere in Michigan area, Michigan, Wisconsin. But his big line is, what you do every day is more important than what you do once in a while.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that sums it up. If you want to have an effective email campaign, write every day. Right. Or write every week. Don't write one and then think you're done. Right. You gotta commit to it. And it's a crazy thing, because in writing a book, right, as a busy father of 4 and a successful entrepreneur, I want to write a book. Well, my idea of writing a book is I can sit down and bang out a book. Well, that just doesn't happen. No, you write today, you write tomorrow. Some days you write better than other days. Some days you write more effectively. But you have to just kind of stick to it to get there.
Yeah. One of the things that has helped me with habits is, and I know we're running longer than we intend, but one of the things that has really helped me, make up my mind that I'm going to do something and then announce it to the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like I do a newsletter that goes out to about 100 people in one of the companies I work for. And I announced that in the month of November that I was, you talk about writing a book. I made the commitment to write 50,000 words in 30 days. Well, it's like, it's a commitment, and it's like, here I am, the 8th of whatever date it is in November. And I know the pace I need to be on to get there. So I definitely am developing a habit of writing every day. It's the only way I get it done. So,
1,600 words a day.
Yeah. So got to keep going.
Yep.
Anyway.
All right. That's
our habits,
our little spiel on habits, leaders, and success. So, I hope you guys liked it, and we'll catch you next time on Paradigm Playbook.